Welcome to Breaking Down Bits, a conversation about great comedy bits with the comedians who wrote and performed them.
Hey, welcome back to Breaking Down Bits Season 4.
We're doing it. It's the premiere of Season 4. Man, I can't. We're still we haven't got canceled yet. We're still doing it. Still having great conversations with comedians, just breaking down bits, as it were. Still doing the virtual open mic. You can hop in there, breakingdownbits.com, or you can email us at breakingdownbits@gmail.com to hop in there. A little feedback mic, work some new jokes. Get feedback from people all over the country and all over the world. It's been great for us. And if you want to give it a shot, shoot us an email every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern.
9 p.m. Eastern. It's been a really productive for me. And I know a lot of comics who have come on board have given us great feedback about how it's helped them with their joke writing process. You can also get us on social media at Breaking Down Bits, and you can even message us there. We'll get you into the mic. So follow us. Like us, subscribe at Breaking Down Bits on all the social media platforms. And as Drew mentioned, breakingdownbits.com is where you find all of our episodes. You can go back and listen. We do a season 3 recap, so go check that out if you want the cliff notes of everything we did in season 3. But let's quickly call back to our last guest, Matthew Broussard. You got a call back, Drew?
Yeah, it's tough. That was such a great episode. I recommend it to you. He's such the way he breaks down writing is so clinical. He's very well spoken, and he brings out in such a way. It's hard to pick just one clip, but I would say one of the fun moments was when he was talking about like how you structure your set, especially when it comes to like open mics and stuff. You know, you got the shit sandwich, the shit Big Mac, open face shit sandwich. Just a great idea to remember. Like when you're doing open mics, you want to like, sometimes we're tempted to just do all new material, but you want to win over the crowd. Where do you put the new stuff in? It's a small little tip. There's so much more in there, but that was one you can't forget. Once you hear someone say shit Big Mac, you're not going to forget that ever.
Yeah, and that was a great part. And another part he talked about mosaic when you're building out a longer set, which I thought was just so smart. And his analogies are just on point. And just him overall, like, let's see, he's educated, he's driven and good looking. He was going to succeed since he chose stand up, right? And so,
yeah, I mean, I'm stalking him, so that's cool.
My callback was the one you used, but I'll go a different direction. Sorry. It's all good. His writing. So a lot of comics will do this. They'll say, look, I'm not disciplined about writing. But then he talked about using social media, and he talked about using Twitter and Facebook to get the word economy, because at Facebook, it's clear you're limited to a certain number of characters. And in Facebook, it goes small, like you get the big text, and he's like, I want to fit it in that big text. Yeah. Isn't that kind of neat to use that to tighten up your jokes?
Yeah, I think that's a great technique. Also gets it out there so you can see if it's getting any connection or just getting some feedback immediately on social media, whether you want to take it to stage or not. But yeah, I think there's something really good. Sometimes you keep a joke in your notebook or on your phone and you never quite craft it out. Doing it on social media forces you to go ahead and order it out, craft it out, make it a coherent phrase. And that's a good exercise,
Absolutely. So go check out that episode, Matthew Broussard, and all of our episodes on breakingdownbits.com, all the podcast platforms where you find your podcast. You want to get to our guest?
Yep. Let's do it. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Aristotle Georgeson is a comedian, writer, improviser, musician, and performance artist based out of Los Angeles, California. His alter ego, Blake Weber, has amassed over 4 million followers and hundreds of millions of views across the internet and on TV. He's appeared on Netflix's Cooking on High, Viceland's Flophouse, Vice Magazine, and has the most disliked video in BuzzFeed history. He's the co-host of the podcast Killin' It and Country Club Adjacent.
Aristotle, how are you, man?
What's going on, guys?
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate you coming in. You have such a unique take, a little different from a lot of the stand-ups that we've had on the show before. So we're excited to get into some different stuff and kind of maybe get into some topics that a lot of stand-ups are not so great at. That's actually kind of your expertise.
Of course. Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here, guys. Thanks for reaching out and having me.
Absolutely.
So the first part of the show, what we like to do is really understand a little bit about your career trajectory and frame it in such a way that a lot of listeners are either newer at stand-up or thinking about getting into stand-up. So that's kind of the base of our listeners. There's more experienced people too, but focusing on those breaks that you found along the way as you kind of go through your story.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. So I guess I started stand-up when I started with comedy in general, with stand-up when I was in college. That's when I started doing it consistently. But I mean, my first stand-up sort of performance ever was in high school at the talent show. I'd always been like a fan of like Robin Williams, and at that time, I guess this was back in like 2006. 7, I would say it was like Dane Cook era, and of course like Pablo Francisco. Like I liked the guy Jim Brewer, all like the guys that were big and like very theatrical. And so I did my high school talent show, and it was like amazing. Like bear in mind, like my material was basically just I basically just did Pablo Francisco's movie voice thing, but like with my own fucking words. Like it was terrible looking back at it, but it like destroyed, and it like was like, oh, I guess I could do this. And so in college, I just like would tell people like, yeah, I'm a comedian, because I was the worst. And I guess it was my junior year, or was it it might've been actually fall senior year. I got a job at there was a Comedy Zone in Tallahassee. And so I was a server there, and I would just like watch the comedians all week while they were in town. And it just kind of gave me courage to finally be like, yo, I could try this or whatever. And so I did. I went to their open mic night, and it was like awful. I had one of those moments where I froze on stage. Like I forgot what I was talking about, and I just like froze, and I was just like, what the fuck? And I like immediately was like, all right, have a good night, bye. And I just like got off stage and freaked out, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm not going to do comedy ever again. But at this point, I had told so many people that I was like a comedian that this was some sorority girl. She asked me if I wanted to like do their fundraiser as like a stand. I was like, of course. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, this is, I got this. And so I went back and started going to open mics at like alternative venues and stuff. And I basically just haven't stopped doing stand up since. It's definitely evolved along the way, but that was like my sort of inception to it was this path where I was like, yeah, I could be a comedian. It's like, no, I can't be a comedian. It's like, no, I have to be a comedian because of the pride. And then I fell in love with it, once I started doing like actual shows and meeting other comedians and whatnot. So that's sort of like the inception. I spent like a year down in South Florida. I would like host at like all the improvs. They had the Miami Improv, Palm Beach Improv, and then Fort Lauderdale. I would tour a little bit through like there's a little circuit of clubs called Bonkers, and so I would do that. And I realized that I just wasn't really resonating that well with crowds in Florida, and so I of course like blamed everybody but myself. I was like, yeah, it's the old people, and like to an extent, it definitely was. On the other side of the coin, it's definitely I was like an immature comedian. I didn't know I just did what I thought people would think was funny. And I don't think it was like really true to like who I was to an extent. But then I moved to Los Angeles, and I got like a crash course in like sort of like what the industry was really like, because when you're in, especially back in like 2012 or 13, it's not, I feel like the stand-up comedy, if you weren't in one of the big three cities, was very like, it was kind of just like you're in a bubble, it wasn't the same. And so when I came to LA, I was like, oh wow, this is sort of what the industry looks like. This is what the fucking pros look like. Cause I finally, could go to the Laugh Factory. I could finally go to the Comedy Store and really just like see what that was all about. And so I started tooling and rebuilding as soon as I moved here. And, I did that for about the first like 3 or 4 years that I lived here. And at that time was the emergence of Vine and Instagram. And I hated Vine. Like, I thought Vine was like really dumb. And I was like, man, fuck this, dude. Fuck these fucking kids that think they're funny. They're just, and I got so mad because you just see these like recycled jokes from like the 80s, and people legitimately were seeing it for the first time. They're like, oh, this guy's the funniest person. It's like, motherfucker, people have been doing this joke in comedy clubs since 1976. Like, what are you doing? And so I hated Vine. But Instagram video came out, and I was like, oh, well, this is a platform that I could fucks with. And so I started making my own Instagram videos. And then at the time, I was working for a weed vaporizer pen company. And I would go to these fucking trade shows and see like all these people vaping. And I just thought like it was just like such a funny character. And there, no one was really sort of making fun of it. And so I had a few jokes in my stand-up act about vaping that would crush, because I would go into this character's voice. And I kind of had this like revelation, like, oh, I could perform this character online and troll people with it. And so I created an Instagram account called Blake Vapes, and I just started making terrible vape videos. And I sort of had the idea to make this guy like delusional as fuck and just thinking he's always crushing it. And so I started the account, and it started to pick up a little steam from meme pages and pages that thought that it was real. And it just kind of perpetuated this like this character, and it kind of was giving me feedback that I needed in order to like keep doing videos and keep making it. So that's exactly what I did. I made like a documentary about the character. And it was really well received. I made another documentary about the character after doing like a Kickstarter campaign. And by the second documentary, I had like, 160,000 followers or whatever. And I was like, this is an interesting path. So I started focusing my time and energy on this character and seeing where it could go. And it's just, it just hasn't really stopped.
Yeah, we actually talked to, I forgot who, maybe it was at the end of last season with Matthew Broussard. He's a guy who's done LA and New York, and he made the observation that in LA, things that kind of pop off are more character driven.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that makes sense that maybe that was the perfect place and the perfect thing to do in LA, whereas in New York, it might have been received slightly differently, perhaps.
Absolutely. And part of the reason why I came to LA is because I did have a little bit of improv background when I moved here. And then when I got here, I immediately did UCB classes. I went through the level 6 and everything. And then I joined a Herald team for a small period of time. It was funny because I had to audition like 3 times to finally like get it. And then when I was on the Herald team, I was like, oh, this fucking sucks. It was so funny. But I did shows with them, every weekend for like, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months, something like that. And that really just gave me so much chops in the acting space and whatnot, because these are the best improvisers in the world, and you're just like among them, and you're like, oh, I better fucking be good. And then, kind of just figured it out a little bit.
I heard something particularly inspiring for stand-up. So we find, as Drew said at the top, a lot of stand-ups don't know where to go with social media.
Yeah.
And at best, what I'm seeing is, let me just post my stand-up clip. But that's not really I don't think it's moving the needle. And so what you did was you took a character that you did on stage, and we all have them, or a lot of us do have them, that we do on stage, and brought it to life. And so comics listening, reimagine any characters or voices or act outs that you're doing on stage, and think about if you can make that more dynamic, and think about how that can go online. Is a great strategy to start building your social media account, and it's really what popped off your career. So that's really inspiring.
It really did. And the joke that I used to do on stage was like, it was when vape was at its peak, dude. So it was like 2014, 15-ish. And the joke was like, I was like, does anyone here vape? And then people would like raise their hand or not. And I was like, it's interesting because you never have to ask a vapor like what they're vaping on. They're just going to tell you no matter what. Like you just walk by and they're just like, dude, you want to try this blueberry yum yum, dude? It's so fucking good, dude. It tastes like blueberries and fresh yum yum like my grandma used to make. And then I would just keep riffing in the voice to see how long I could get laughs for. And it just got to a point where like I could just keep going in the voice and just keep getting laughs. And I was like, all right, this is something. This is something. And I just like, I got to a point where I was like so depressed in LA because the open mics here are just so bad. And I was getting really depressed going to them. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I was like just looking for any sort of outlet. And so I just started making these videos and with that character, knowing that like, all right, it crushes on stage. How can it not crush, online on a different platform?
Yeah. So there's a lot of the stuff that you create on the videos and stuff. Is that just a lot of riffing that gets there, or are you is that something that's more thought out? Like how do these things come to fruition? Is it, I feel like maybe a lot of it's riffing, but how much is really planned and really like pen to paper writing, to create that stuff?
So with my stand-up, it's always been very much like idea and then riff it out on stage till it's polished. And I would say a lot of the time that's how my videos have been filmed. It's like idea, riff it out on paper, riff it out on cam till it's polished. And then over the last like 2 or 3 years since I started doing more sketch type stuff, it's been literally down the middle on like, all right, today we're just going to have a random idea and we're just going to fucking shoot and see what happens. And then versus, all right, here's basically the structure of our sketch. Here's the lines that we definitely want to get. And let's also just play around within that. So it's kind of 50-50. It used to be like 80-20 in terms of just riffing versus writing. And, my philosophy on comedy has always been the funniest thing on stage, funniest thing on camera, the funniest thing that can happen is something that's built within that moment. So, you look at like a lot of classic comedy lines. The one that really comes to mind is from Anchorman when they're sitting there and Steve Carell's like, I love lamp. Like that whole entire sequence was improvised, and it was just him just looking at things in the room and saying that he loves them, and then Will Ferrell calling it out, and that was not at all planned, which I find interesting, and I find that to be the case in a lot of movies when you hear the stories behind the scenes or whatever. So I believe that too when it comes to comedy. I can. From me personally, I've had, shows where I'll start off riffing and I'll be murdering, and then I go into material and everyone's like, all right, that's fine. And I go back to like riffing and it just starts crushing again. And so I think that the funniest thing that can happen is something that happens in the moment. It's the most memorable. It makes the show about the audience. And, it's just, that's sort of where my head went. And so that's why I'm such like a strong proponent of like improv and riffing, both on stage and on camera.
Yeah, I mean that's such a great point. Like I'm in a place recently where I've noticed that I like improvising and crowd work and that riffing on stage is not a thing that I'm like ultimately comfortable with yet. Still
Mhm.
working on that, still trying to find that comfortable place. And as I'm watching, like especially in the open mic scene's not terrible here in Houston. We actually get audience members. It's not like in
Nice.
LA or New York where you're just performing for comics. There are actually
Yeah.
real people, real humans in there. It's nice. And I noticed if you watch those mics, the people who really do well, especially in a captive, maybe like, an audience that wasn't even expecting comedy to be there that night, the guys that excel are the ones that can bring the audience in, can
Yep.
talk about what's happening in the room, get to know people. And if you're getting up there and just doing straight material, even if the material's good, a lot of times you get a meh
Yep.
from the audience. And
Yep.
so that I just want to like, are you teaching a master class I can take? Because I want to know how to, or maybe there is a couple things that you noticed about, riffing or crowd work or doing that. Are there a couple little like big rules that you think about or big takeaways that you would say, here's step one of getting better at creating those memorable moments?
Mm. For me, it's always trying to find connections. So like, for instance, when we were doing the show in Jacksonville, so one of my things that I always try, even if it's like a stretch, I'll try to piece something I said earlier with something that just came up in the room. So for instance, I was asking, there's two girls in the front and I pointed at one of them. I was like, hey, is your name Ashley? And she's like, no, but my sister is. I was like, oh, so you're pretty much Ashley basically. And then, and so I held on to that knowing that this person's sister's name was Ashley. And then later on in the show, someone in the back was like, how big's your dick? And I was like, you know what? Why don't you just ask her sister Ashley, dude? She knows. And just putting that connection together it was perfect because then they're like, oh my God, he said Ashley earlier and he just said it. So like so I just try to like remember, essentially one thing from anybody that I talk to so I can piece it together with something else because it'll always work. And so lately, on stage, I've been performing mostly as Blake. I've kind of been doing like this weird, like sort of like Blake / me hybrid show where I'll do like I'll organically find my way into some of my favorite like bits that I do and some of my newer material that I've been writing. But in between that is what I'll do is the crowd works. I'll have people ask me questions and I'll just sort of like play around and tell fake stories.
Yeah, when you did that in Jacksonville and you just said, "Hey, here's 5 questions, go."
Yeah.
You have obviously just cultivated, I guess, through your UCB and your improv. You were so comfortable. No matter what someone threw at you, you found a fun way to. I mean, that's where I think a lot of comics want to get, where you can be so as vulnerable as to say, "Just throw me a question." And I'm confident that I can make it funny. Like that's a place I think every comic wants to get.
Yeah, it's so much fun for me because like I thrive on like that adrenaline. Like I need to like be like in danger. And so when I'm on stage and I feel like I'm in danger, like I'm heightened, that's when I'm at my best. If I'm like up there being comfortable or like I'm just sitting there, just, going through my set or whatever, it gets monotonous and boring. So I just like to be like at any moment, anything can happen.
Yeah, when the stakes are higher, that's when you tend to you're up against the wall. Something good will come out. You gotta trust in that and trust in your wit. And Drew, you gave a really actionable thing for Drew's question, which is basically just create a callback. Just have a quick conversation with somebody, recall it, and then try to work it in later. And that's something you can just work out at these open mics as something you can just kind of add into your set more or less.
Yeah. And, when it comes to doing Blake on stage, one thing that I know that is helps me mentally when there's if there's a lull in stuff, is that I'm doing the character on stage. So the whole time I'm on stage, that's the bit. The bit is like, why the fuck would this guy be qualified to be doing anything on stage? And so for me, it helps me because everything that I'm saying is part of the joke, whether it's funny or not. It's all part of the joke, the bigger joke. So that's definitely helpful, and it allows me to say things that aren't funny, but play them off as though they're hilarious, and the audience will buy into it every time. Sometimes someone will ask a question. Let's say I do like 2 or 3 questions in a row, and I get punchline. Someone will ask me like a ridiculous thing, like, what's your favorite article of clothing? And then I can just deadpan be like, pants. and I know that'll get a laugh because it wasn't meant to be funny, but it's funny because it wasn't meant to be funny. And then I can move on from there.
Yeah. Cause at that point, like the character is so outrageous.
Yeah.
The left turn can only be less outrageous.
Yeah.
That's the only place to go, because outrageous is what people expect. So yeah,
exactly. So if you keep it grounded and real, you're gonna win with that.
That's fun. Yeah, I mean, I got to see it in action, and it was super fun, and I just love the idea of getting better at crowd work. I know that's something a lot of comedians struggle with, because I am one of them. And when you get into crowd work, or when you start with, let's say you come up, a lot of people are like, hey, what's your name? What do you do for a living, or whatever? To me, that I struggle with that. It feels canned for me. Mm-hmm. But some comedians that we've talked to said, look, what else are you going to do? That's just an opening line you would say to anyone at the mall or in public. It's totally normal. I liked your questions thing. Any tips on beginner steps to crowd work? How do you like to get into it? Is it just a hi, how are you doing? Or is there some little strategy that you use to make it a little more interesting, a little more fun?
So for me, I like to just straight up make assumptions about people. Like I'll just go right in with like, your name's Bradley, isn't it? Like I'll just go in and just like start like, you work at such and such, or you guys definitely have never had sex, or like this is, just make a blanket assumption at them. Yeah. And then see what happens.
Yeah, because there's a couple outcomes, right? You could nail it, and that's funny. Yeah. It could be like really far from the truth, and that's funny. And so you've given yourself these different angles, other than you have to respond to exactly what they say. It's kind of neat.
Exactly, and to me, when you nail it, because like sometimes I'll just nail it, and it like everyone's mind is blown. They're like, "What the fuck?" Like I remember this one time I was at the show, and this guy wasn't paying attention. He was just at the bar talking to some lady, and he was like really old, and she was like younger. And I was like, "All right, he is definitely he's rich. He's definitely in tech," because I knew where we were in. At Manhattan Beach, and like there's a lot of like tech places in that general area, and I was like, he's rich, he's 100% in tech. They've maybe met once before. He's got 2 kids, and this is like where she comes every Tuesday for tacos and margaritas, and like everything was right except he had like 4 kids. When they finally started talking, it was just crazy to see the build up, because then I was like asking him, I was like, all right, so where do you work? And he's like, well, actually, I sold, it was so funny. He literally sold Shazam. He's like, yeah, so I just sold my tech, Shazam. And I was like, he was in tech. I knew it. I knew he was in tech. I was like, and then do you know this lady? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, how many times have you met? He's like, well, this is like our second date. And I was like, boom, he already knew her. Yeah. How many kids do you have? He's like 4. I was like, God damn it. And then that was funny, because I was wrong, but barely.
That's fun. Yeah. I like that idea. That's a fun idea. Just instead of just when you just launch in there, it's a little more interesting than asking a question, and also it slows down when you launch in. It makes it faster.
Mm-hmm.
You get right into the fun stuff faster.
And you can ask questions. You know, I always launch in and then follow up with questions. You can ask questions. It's just, it just seems like it's more traditional. And when you ask questions, sometimes people don't like being put on the spot. And so they'll freeze up, and then that makes it weird for everybody else. And then now it's weird for you. And whereas if you just like launch in, you're just like, you're Becca, aren't you? Like they have no choice but to say yes or no. Whereas if you ask them like, what do you do for a living? Sometimes they're like, well,
it's complicated.
Yeah.
I got 2 jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're forcing it, and you're making it easy for them because there's only a couple of responses. You're not
That's
asking
kind of
a huge open-ended question.
That's kind of our job, isn't it? They're supposed to be able to sit back, relax, enjoy themselves, and we're supposed to entertain them. And if you're really pulling from them, you're taking away from them, right? From their experience in some way.
Yep.
Man, that's fun. So I do want to talk a little bit. I love that portion of just the conversation on crowd work and improvising. I'm a
improvising.
I speak English. And crowd work and riffing and stuff like that. But also want to talk a little bit about, I mean, you've spent so much time with social media, with Instagram and all this stuff. Talk to us a little bit about things that comedians should be doing, things that you've done that found like maybe the most success. What really got the most traction for you, and what were those big things that happened?
You talking about just in general, or
yeah, I mean, like obviously, like creating the Blake vapes and the Blake Weber stuff.
Yeah.
What tech is there? Some techniques, or is there some strategies, or is there some type of things you created that really move the needle more than some other things that you tried, maybe in a little more granular thinking?
Yeah. So realistically, it sounds like so annoyingly cliche, but it's like you just gotta keep doing the stuff, you know? And I don't know if it was like lucky or just like good timing or what, maybe it was like a combination of everything. But, you know, when I was doing the vape, sort of character, it was like, I got lucky because people would share my videos, you know? So like, and what I figured out was that I had certain formats that performed really well. And so I would do those video formats, you know, so I would say there's like 4 styles of videos that I used to make. And like one was like a guaranteed banger. The other one was like kind of, it was like could pop off, might be normal. And then the other 2 styles of videos were just like experimentations or, videos or pictures or videos that I knew could just like get me on base to making the next post. So yeah, it was like finding your formats that work and then playing within those.
Yeah. And I think I recall you saying that maybe one of the things that the most shareable content that you created was maybe some of the voiceovers with Cardi B, and it kind of like World Star. Yeah, retweeted those and shared those. Yeah,
and those came. You know, I think I started doing those in like 2018, and essentially at that point when I started doing like the voiceovers, I had like 300 and something K followers, and the Cardi B ones were the first ones that I did because I would see her and she would say like just the most ridiculous shit. And I just thought it'd be funny to like put an exclamation point on what she said by adding my stupid voice. So
yeah.
So that was sort of the inception of the voiceovers. And then I found 6ix9ine. I found his account when he had like 50K followers. And I was like, what the fuck is this guy? And then he started pumping out videos and I was like, all right, well, this is somehow way worse than Cardi B. So I have to do that to this. I have to put my voice on these videos, and it worked out really great.
You said some stuff that is, like you said, it's cliche, but it's so important to hear. Consistency, stick with it, and then measure. Like, how are things performing? And maybe you can share a little bit about the tools and things that you were using there. And then thinking about what's shareable. Why would somebody want to share this? If you think of your content in that perspective, that's how you can really pop off and grow. But the tools part is interesting. How are you measuring? What were your?
I mean, really, it just came down to, at the time, literally just likes and comments. And I would say comments were more important to me, because that means people were like actually taking the time to like engage with the videos. And then, WorldStar was such like a huge proponent of what I was doing. So they would pick up my videos and share those. And it really was, to an extent, in order to grow online and do this, your shit has to get shared. Very rarely anymore are you just going to be like an organic like growth. And I would say I found a very organic way to grow. But even still, it really came from people passing around your videos from other platforms where you normally wouldn't be seen.
Yeah, and you picked celebrity figures that were either wildly popular.
Yep.
Your super relatable stuff that people that everyone know. Like, I feel like sometimes my comedy is a little, and the things that I think are funny sometimes are a little too niche, and they're not necessarily something that's widespread, understood, or whatever. And so, so I think when you're trying to create social content, maybe you got to get outside your bubble and find something that everyone kind of has a reference for, because that's way more people obviously can enjoy it.
Yep. Yeah, it's true. And it was definitely helpful doing the voiceovers. And so then those ended up growing and turning into, it went to, animal videos. And I found another really niche thing with the robots. Which is actually fascinating, because I'm actually working on a cartoon right now that is essentially about the robots that are stuck in a lab. And so that
sounds great.
Yeah, no, it's going to be really funny. And I have a meeting later today. We just signed an artist to the project, and we're going to look at the first rough sketches today. So I'm really excited about that. But that became its own niche. And so now it's interesting on my page. What I found is I have people that are there for my Tekashi 6ix9ine voiceovers, people that are there for my sketches, people that are there for the animal voiceovers, people that are there for the robot voiceovers. And so it's like I've got this whole like culmination of followers that are there for all the different types of styles of content that I do. And it's just it's good because it keeps you on your toes. Like, I get to be creative in a bunch of different outlets. I get to stay within the rules of this character, and it's just it's fun, and it lets me explore many different avenues.
Yeah, and you even do music, and maybe Brian, we should cue up the clip. Mm-hmm. We haven't played those yet. Maybe give people a little bit of a sense of some of the different things. So we have like a clip of one of the songs. I think it's called Vitamin A.
That's right.
And then we have a clip of that Cardi B voiceover. And then you also did a real or fake TED Talk.
Yeah. Well, so that was my show when I tour as Blake. It's like a fake TED Talk.
Gotcha. Okay. So there's 3 clips. You can kind of get an idea of the scope of some of the different stuff that Aristotle does as Blake Weber.
Let's go.
I stay away from bleach. No antifreeze. I stay away from poison. I don't want that, please. No, I don't eat babies. I don't eat cats. I don't eat hamsters. I stay away from that. I stay away from bleach. No antifreeze. I stay away from poison. I don't want that, please. No, I don't eat babies. I don't eat cats. I don't eat hamsters. I stay away from that. Let me tell you what I do eat. 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 I eat ass. regular smuggler girl from the Bronx. What's poppin'? My name is Cardi B. Yeah, what? I'm from the Bronx. You know who I am. Nah, girl. I'm classy. But I could be classy-er. Titties on fleek all day, day. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? I ain't your friend. Now let me tell you something. No, that's my friend. Maybe you want to pop off. Oh, it's lovely. What's so funny? Get that white chocolate supreme. Vanilla can. You know you're not paying that rent. When they first asked me to do the TED Talk, I was hella nervous, dude. But I realized, like, dude, it's not about you and your nerves. It's way bigger than that. It's about the movement. Why are you here? Why are you here? The answer, as you know, is one, to learn how to kill the game. Okay, that's why you're here, dude. Second reason you're here is to learn how to handle your headers, dude. Straight up. Everyone has them, you learn how to handle them. If you have a particular set of skills that can benefit others, then it's not just your job to share it, it's your fucking obligation. In 2017, as the kill in the game level moved to the right, the haters level went up. So, interesting correlation we see. This is raw data, just to let everyone know. Raw fucking data. Can you please get out of the front of the projector, sir? Thank you. We're discussing raw data. That is not something that you fuck with, dude. Knowledge is a collective observations of your life experience. So you must live, observe, report, grab. I want to show you a demonstration of an antelope handling a hater. That's the antelope right there. And as you can see right there, he knows there's a hater nearby, dude, but guess what he's doing? Shit. He's ignoring the hate. Let's see what happens.
Shit. Oh no. No.
Wow, a nice escape, dude. Let's see how he used my 4-step method. Let's see. He ignored the hate. He never let the hater know he was bothering him. He's just doing a backflip, dude. He killed the hater with niceness because he did not kick him in the face. He could have kicked him right in his stupid gator face. And then guess what he's going to do right now, dude? He's going to fucking chill with his girl, and that's how he killed the hater with killing it, right there. Incredible. Incredible example. Thank you. Yes. The movement has begun. It's time to learn. It's time to teach. It's time to be great.
Man, I love this kind of stuff. And to me, all this just feels like you have an incredible sense of what people want to see, what people want to consume. And then you're able to put this character into these like the mockumentary style. That's something we've all kind of become accustomed to through The Office and other things. And that's how you did your TED Talks shoot. And I mean, just the character overall. Can I say it's got like a touch of like Pauly Shore in the 90s in there?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is something for me. Like, I think as comics, we're all searching for our angle. We're all searching for some people call it your voice, how you can be unique, how you can stand out. And I think there's just room now in the world to not just be a traditional normal ass stand-up. You can be creative. Maybe you have something that's different. Maybe you have a skill set, like you have the improvisation. I'm going to say that word right one time on this podcast. And you've just leaned into your personal sense of humor, your personal skill set. And you said, look what, I can do my own thing. Like my show is a traveling TED Talk. Suck it. Here goes. I love that. And I think as comics, I know for me, that just gets me excited because I start going, oh, maybe I'm not built for just traditional regular stand-up. Maybe there's something interesting here that I need to uncover. I need to find and then create it and not have to follow some rules that that we think are on stand up.
Yeah, and truth, my philosophy always has been, I don't want to be the norm. I want to be like, I want people to like see my show and be like, dude, that was fucking wild. Like that was insane. That was like different than anything I've ever seen before. And so that's always been my motivation behind building this. And when I figured out that I could do it as sort of like a multimedia show where it's like it absolutely engages the audience. It brings them into the show. It makes it no longer, because stand up is, when a comedian's on stage, the show's always, it's about them. It's their show. It's them on stage talking about themselves and their experience. With this particular show, it's about the crowd. It's about teaching the crowd. It's teaching the crowd something, and it's bringing them into this world where they're part of it. It's not just me up there talking about my shit. It's me talking about their shit. And so to me, that makes it a more memorable experience, and it makes it a lot more fun and engaging.
Yeah, you also kind of use your technique of crowd work is you force something on the crowd and you go, why are you here? Well, you're here to learn how to kill, beat the haters and kill it. And you force that on the crowd and then work backwards from there. It's super fun.
Exactly. And it's so fun because like, I'll pull up like the slides or whatever. And then, I'll go in and say like, sir, what do you do for a living? And so I'll ask the questions, but they're already like prepared because they're like looking at this thing and they know that I'm going to apply, some knowledge to whatever it is that they do. And it's always a hoot.
Let me ask you this. So in stand up, and especially in Houston, because Houston's very similar to New York, we're Drew talked about earlier, LA, you can do the character stuff. Houston, very, very like stand up is stand up, and you got to do your jokes, set up, punch, tag. Mm-hmm. And if you bring a guitar up on stage, like, oh, this fucking guy, look at what's he trying to do. So maybe you didn't experience this as much being in LA, but did you experience some of that from the comics? If you were taking sort of alt comedy presentation style, did you notice that was that you get resistance from comics in that area?
I mean, not to my face, surprisingly, no. I did the show at the Hollywood Improv, and there was like a decent amount of comics there, and I think because it's just so different that they like respected it, because like you can have the guitar comic and he's just up there singing dirty guitar songs, and you've seen it before, you've done it, so it's like, whatever. But this was just like, it's so different that they're like, whoa, okay, that's something I've never seen before. Respect, so I think that's sort of the, that's how I kind of got away with it, is because it was just, it is really bizarre. It's really different. And, it's funny. At the end of the day, it's just funny. And I think that trumps everything.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's also got to be kind of rooted in some truth too, because you have the most disliked video on BuzzFeed.
Yep.
What was that experience like, and what do you do with the feedback when you like it's like fun, but it's also got to hit you somewhere differently a little bit, right? Like, whoa.
Well, it was funny because one of my buddies who I was collaborating with at the time a lot, his name is Biniam Bazuna. He's hilarious, stand up, and he randomly got a job at BuzzFeed just out of nowhere. And he was supposed to be making viral videos for them. And he didn't have any ideas because they wanted this was peak BuzzFeed, 2016, just the worst era of internet video from BuzzFeed, 10 things you didn't know you could put on ice cream, that kind of shit. And so he hit me up and was like, dude, I just want to profile you on BuzzFeed as Blake. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so funny. And so we purposely made it made me very unlikable in the video. And I played it up to be the absolute worst. And it was so funny because they had the initial title as meet the vape god of Instagram or whatever. and and the video got so many dislikes that they changed it. Like, they changed it to, can you believe this guy's the vape god of Instagram? And it got so many dislikes. And it was so funny because then my buddy Biniam just like quit like a week later. he went there, got a job, made a profile of me, got the most dislikes, and just pieced. It was so funny.
Do you get a negative feedback maybe in comments and stuff? Or do most people understand what you're doing?
At first the whole entire character was born from hate. Any of the followers that I had were just like hate following and like, fuck this guy. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? He's such a piece of shit. Stop being so annoying. What's wrong with your voice? All that shit. And then as I just kept putting out content and kept garnering new audience members, I saw the shift from like, oh, he's making fun of these people. This is funny. And I saw a shift in hate, especially around like 2018. Once I started sort of roasting like Cardi B and 6ix9ine, I saw the shift like hugely happen then. And it went from that to like, damn, I love you. You're doing God's work, making fun of these people, blah, blah, blah. And so now any negative comments that I receive are just people trying to get attention. Like I'll get like a comment on there like, dude, you're fucking annoying. And I'll be like, thanks, bro. And they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe you responded. Holy shit. I didn't really mean that you were annoying. And so now it's just, you find a lot of times when people say negative things or they'll send you a negative message or whatever. If you like you pay attention or just like respond, they're like, oh shit. They like, that's all they wanted. They just wanted that attention. So
yeah, kill them with kindness.
That's right, baby boy. You saw the clip.
Step 3.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Well, maybe is anything else you want to jump into, Brian, or is it time to do last laugh?
Let's make him do last laugh. You ready? You get some coffee. Ready to do this?
Oh, shit, dude. I'm ready.
It's so weird. I'm sorry. All right. So here's how it works. This is the last joke that you will be remembered by. It could be your joke, it could be somebody else's joke. What's the joke that Aristotle wants on his tombstone?
Oh, this one's so tough, dude. What is it's just gonna be right underneath there. Is your name Kyle?
Nice.
Just doing crowd work.
From the
It'll
grave.
work. Yeah, it'll work at some point. Yeah.
Is your name Kyle? Is your name Ashley? Is your name James? Is your name Jeffrey?
Just keep guessing.
Just keep guessing people's names.
I love that, man. Such a fun talk today. I think some really actionable stuff for comics who want to do a little more crowd work, want to riff, kind of explore their own creativity. Excellent kickoff to season 4. So thanks for spending the time with us today and kind of diving into some of that stuff.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, gents. It was great talking to you.
Absolutely, man. We'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks, Blake.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Down Bits. You can keep in touch or get more when you follow @BreakingDownBits on social media, visit the website breakingdownbits.com, or shoot us an email at breakingdownbits@gmail.com.